All right. So Susan and May, let's go ahead and make your introductions now.
Okay, so we wanted to we will introduce ourselves in a minute, but part of this, our webinars are really to be interactive. So feel like you can ask questions when they come up. You don't have to wait till the end. It's a short presentation because we wanted to save some time for questions and to really have a conversation. So feel free to raise your hand, ask a question whenever.
And no question is stupid. There is no judgment. If you have your receipts in a shoebox, that's fine. Doesn't sound like either of you do, but all questions are welcome.
Yes. So in terms of who we are, I built a fashion accessory brand when I was in my mid-20s. I came up with an idea to make interchangeable hair accessories, headbands and barrettes with snaps with silk flowers that were interchangeable. It ended up morphing because the department stores didn't want to merchandise all the pieces, and it became a high-end hair accessory scarf and belt brand. I ran my business for 25 years. I understand the ups and downs and how hard it is to be an entrepreneur, the great days, the hard days, everything in between. So, and after doing that, May and I started our consulting company where we work with brands, helping them build strong brand foundations and strategies for growth, whether that means entering the retail space or operations or financial analysis, whatever a business owner needs, we come in and help them. May, yourself.
And my background is more corporate. I've got experience at some large multinational banks, Goldman Sachs and Citicorp. I have an MBA as well. So my background is in strategic planning, project management, and of course, I bring the financial modeling to our business. But Susan and I work together. We collaborate with our clients on, as she said, tackling everything from marketing to branding to finances, to your operations, because of course, as you all know, so many of these things are completely intertwined. You simply can't talk about your branding without talking about your pricing. You can't talk about your pricing without talking about your COGS, so on and so forth. So that's what we do. We spend our days with entrepreneurs like yourselves, helping them troubleshoot and manage all the things that come up and plan for the future.
Okay, so the goal of this session is really collaboration, as we said. Jump in, raise your hand. If you want to ask something anonymously, you can ask it in the chat. Our conversation is confidential and there are no bad questions, as May said. So anything that comes up, feel free to ask, even if it's a little bit off the topic, since it's a small group. If there's something that triggers you to think about something that's not necessarily finance related, feel free to ask that as well. Okay. So May, I think this is you.
Yep. So oftentimes people come to us and they say, and the reason I asked what your level of comfort of finance is because especially when it comes to finances, there's a lot of baggage that goes along with that, a lot of guilt, a lot of flashbacks to high school math that people get uncomfortable with. The important thing to understand is that understanding your finances is absolutely crucial for feeling as though you are sort of on top of things and know where your business is and where you want your business to go. And what we say to our clients when we sit down to take a look at their finances is, before we get mired into the details of anything, what do you want to know? Do you know what your profit margins are? Do you know what your price point is relative to your competition? How did you pick your price point? Sometimes we have clients who say to us, I don't know, $75 seemed like a good price, right? Now, there are different ways to figure out what your prices should be, but the real question is, what is it that you want to know about your business? How much money did I make last year? How much money can I expect to make next year? What kind of volume can I handle? How many hours do I need to be in the office if you're a service-based business? So we start with the questions that you want to answer, and then we say to you, talk to us about how you're tracking your financial information, right? How are you keeping track of your spending? How are you keeping track of your sales? How are you keeping track of everything? Sometimes the answer is people aren't really keeping track of it at all, which again is more common than you'd think. is there terminology? A lot of people who work in finance and who work for banks throw out big terms, and the terms can be alienating. If you don't know what the terms are, you can just sit there feeling foolish, not entirely sure what's happening in any given conversation. So if there are terms that you don't fully understand or you want to know more about them, then that's kind of, we start talking about that as well. And then, as we look at your finances, we talk about ratios. If that's relevant, we look at how things have changed over time. We can sometimes what we do, because we have some clients who come to us and say, here are my beautiful financials prepared by my accountant. Aren't they gorgeous? And we said, that's beautiful. Can you explain what goes into your COGS? And then they can't answer that question. So even if you have beautiful financial statements, it doesn't necessarily mean that you, the entrepreneur, understands the impact on your bottom line. And some of the work that Susan and I do is building models to say, if you are selling your widget for $100 and it cost you this much money to make, how much money is coming to you at the end? When you've got this cash in your hands from selling your widgets, what are you spending it on? And really doing a deep dive into that. And then, of course, the question that most people get really uncomfortable with, what intimidates you about this? Because again, as I said, there's an enormous amount of baggage. But in any financial endeavor, the first thing you want to ask yourself is, what do I want to know about my company? And then we can figure out how to get you there.
And the other thing that we also do is there are a lot of hidden costs in the retail space that sometimes entrepreneurs aren't aware of. I did a lot of private label for stores like Anthropologie and Taylor, and I wasn't aware that I had to pay for my tickets, and I had to ticket every item, and that if I was selling to their e-commerce site, that I had to bag every piece in one bag and it had to be labeled, which was a lot of labor. And all of those are costs that go into your cost of goods. And I think sometimes, unfortunately, we're surprised by those because a lot of entrepreneurs sell to a large store for the first time and aren't always armed with the questions to ask so they can really figure out what their margins are. So just a little story there. Let's see. Okay. Oops. Sorry.
Okay.
What's happening?
Okay. So,
I'm sorry to interrupt. We had 2 more people that just joined.
oh, great.
So maybe if you could just go back and quickly introduce yourselves again.
Sure. Do you want to start, Mary? Can start?
Sure. So I have a background in finance and in project management. I've worked at multinational corporations, Citibank, as well as Goldman Sachs. I bring analysis, strategic planning, and financial analysis to the consulting that Susan and I do for clients, many who are often in the retail space.
And I'm Susan. I started a women's accessory brand when I was in my mid-20s, grew it to be an international company, ran it for about 25 years, sold to department stores all over the US and abroad, and small stores, did private label. So I kind of lived it all. And I really like the creative side of the business. So when we work with clients, we talk a lot about product development, what's selling, what's not selling, what's your brand, what's your messaging, how are you putting yourself out there, and really getting to the crux of who you are, because the industry is very crowded. And so we talk a lot about what your value is and what you bring and why people should buy your products. So that is us.
Thank you. And for those that just joined, if you do have a question, Susan and May are very, very happy for you to ask your question at any time, or you can put a question in the chat. So please feel free to ask a question anytime.
And the presentation is very short, so we will open it up for questions in about 5 minutes. So we'll be able to have a conversation.
Okay, so general principles about small business finance. Is there anyone here who has taken on debt or has issued equity for their business? Just speak up because I can't. Okay, it doesn't sound like it. So that's typical for our client base. On the whole, small business finance is very straightforward. The money comes in and the money goes out. And so when you are trying to wrap your brain around your finances and really get a sense of what's going on, you don't have to do any complicated or sophisticated math. You're, and all you're doing is adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing. And all of that heavy lifting can be done very nicely by Excel or Google Sheets or any of the software applications that you are using to run your regular office. It's pretty straightforward. There is a vast array of free tools. There are a vast array of free tools that can help you with this. And we've got some resources at the end of the presentation, which we're happy to share with you if you are interested in them. I think it's important as you go looking, if you are in the market for free tools, just be careful when you're Googling, because you can end up sort of with a morass of conflicting advice. So go to the organizations that you trust. The Small Business Administration, there's an organization called SCORE, and there are a couple of others. Again, we've got some resources at the end to share if you're interested. The important thing as you think about these general principles is to understand that you can have the most beautiful accounting statements in the world and still not understand what's happening financially with your business. So again, as I said before, one of the things that Susan and I do is work with our clients to help them understand impact to their bottom line and reasonable projections, right? You're not going to get projections for future revenue from your accounting statements. So we try to be very practical in the analysis that we do and in the advice that we give.
And also looking at pricing in terms of, if you're a luxury brand, are your prices reflecting who you are as a luxury brand? And if you can raise your prices even $5, how will that affect? Sometimes it's amazing how much raising your prices just a little bit will affect your bottom line. So we look at all of those factors as well. Let's see if I can do this without having it go crazy. Okay. No,
No, we went backwards.
I'm going backwards. Sorry. This is it. Do we do this? Yeah. Okay. So some of the common mistakes and misconceptions that we found is time is money. A lot of entrepreneurs, we're building our businesses. This is what we do, but we forget that our time is money. I can give you one example. When I used to do private label for Anthropologie, they would order maybe 20,000 units. And because I was so concerned about the quality, even though I trusted my factory, I needed everything to come through my office. So the amount of time I spent looking and making sure everything was okay, I could have paid somebody else to do that work and probably end up spending less than I did doing it myself. So just think about what you are spending your time on. And often we don't want to hire somebody to do the work and we think we can do it ourselves. But if it's taking you a long time and you can find somebody to do it for a shorter amount of time, often you can save money. Pricing is also something really important. Often we find our clients just kind of pick a price, but it's so important to look at your competition, see where you fit in the scheme of things, and then look at your COGS and go up from there. And we've also seen a lot of business owners who want to sell to the big stores, the Targets, the Whole Foods. And when it comes down to it, they're making pennies per jar or per item. And it's really important to decide if that's worth it for you. Is it are you going to consider it a marketing expense to be in a store like that? Is that really important to you? Or is it more important for you to really be making the margins you want to make? So markup and profit margin, industry specific, but start by at least doubling your COGS to start. It's going to depend a lot on your retail channel. If you're doing private label, they're probably going to ask you to lower your prices. It depends on how much quantity you're selling. Department stores may ask you for lower prices as well. So, but just really be aware before you say yes. And this is something we try to stress all the time is if you're asked to lower your prices, do not feel that you have to answer on the spot. Tell the buyer that you will get back to them and you will not be penalized for getting back to them. But I had many situations where I said yes at a show and I shouldn't have said yes. So it's just really important to make sure that you go back and really consider what what the reduction in price is going to do to your bottom line and whether it's worth it to you. I mean, being in a store like Barney's was really worth it to me and helped launch my brand. But that's a decision you have to make. And nobody's going to penalize you for saying you need to go back and figure out your numbers. And also sometimes if you're doing private label, it may be that you change your fabrications or you change how something is made. And it may not be, Anthropologie used to come in and take $28 hair accessories and want them for 12. So the only way that I could do that was to change the fabrication and not use silk and use poly or rayon. They ended up looking just as pretty, but my cost was lowered incredibly. So just some thoughts there. I'm sorry, everybody. So here are some resources that we can share with you guys. We'll get your emails and we can share with you after the session, just so you have them. And additional questions, we'll send you emails after this so you can reach out to us. And I'm going to stop sharing now so we can open it up for questions and discussion. So
Great.
anybody have any questions?
Well, you know what? Why don't we do a quick introduction for the people that just joined?
Okay.
And I see Gay Isper. Hi, Gay. You want to introduce yourself?
Sure, I am so excited. I'm sorry it's a little bit late. I had my boss was talking in my other ear, but these are great conversations to have. And I think one thing that really is very upsetting when I think about it, and I'm like, I don't know how to twist it around, is that I've been selling jewelry, handmade jewelry that has all the best ingredients for a long time, more than 20 years. And I don't think my prices have gone up in 20 years. I think I'm still selling earrings.
Ouch.
$60, $40 is I was just at the Tucson Gem and Mineral Show, and people, they're looking for that deal. It's just really hard to get them. I mean, I think I sold one earring that was like 121, and then the others were, I think I just put the earrings away and tried to focus on that was my solution there, because it's like I'd rather sell a necklace than a pair of earring. I had some out, but just not very many. So I don't know, the pricing in today's very tricked out China competitor, thing. And it does depend on where you are. I understand I'm at a convention center with just a lot of old hippies. That's what we were. And so there's going to be a difference in that. I'm not selling it, somewhere finer. But tell me a little bit about what you think about pricing in today's very tricky conversations that we're having with customers, and how to motivate them to buy something without, feeling like we're just giving it away. Because I kind of feel like I was giving it away.
So you can take a top-down approach to your pricing, or you can take a bottom-up approach to your pricing. The bottom-up obviously is to start by looking at your expenses, right? It costs me this much to buy the beads, this much to buy whatever cord chain you're wearing, this much to buy the accessories, it costs me this much to buy the tools, right? And then it takes me, as Susan said earlier, you must include your time. If it takes you 3 hours, 5 hours, pretend you're paying yourself a salary of whatever you think is appropriate, and add that into the full cost, and then at least double that, right? That's the bottom-up approach. And then there's sort of the top-down approach, or the side-by-side approach, where you go out into a retail channel. And of course, the internet's fantastic for this, because you can research Bloomingdale's and Saks Fifth Avenue and Macy's, and then you can look at Etsy, right? The problem is that there are a ton of jewelry designers out there. So you have to make sure when you're going to do this research that the people you're comparing yourself to have similar products and offer something, right? You have to be very clear about, I am Glenda Gay McMillan, and my products are special because of X, right? And so in whatever niche you've identified for yourself, find some competitors and see what they're charging and see how much it's in line. And you sort of, so you're coming at it from the bottom up of what it's costing you, and the sides of what other people are charging, and the top down of how much money you'd like to make. And you triangulate it. And then if you're really feeling like adventurous, you do a little experimenting, right? And you say, I'm going to raise this price by $10 or $15 or 10% or 15% and see what people tell me. And you also remember that anybody will be happy to buy your products at a lower price. And so, when in doubt, tell them the price and don't flinch. Even if they're looking at you and saying, I've got 3 orphans under my care and the government is not paying me enough to take care of these 3 orphans and my husband's blind and oh gosh, it's so terrible. I can't afford anything. Try very hard not to flinch.
And the other thing is to really think about your value. And this is something that I think happens to all of us. And think about, who is your ideal customer? Who are you targeting? And what's the value that you're bringing them? And what value are you bringing them over your competition? How do you set yourself apart? So if somebody came to your booth and said, what makes you different? What makes you special? You can talk about yourself and your brand in a way that will make them want to buy your brand and see the value in it. And 20 years is a long time to not raise your prices, because I am sure that all the ingredients that go into making your jewelry has gone up. And if you have a factory or somebody working for you, you've probably paid them more. So there's nothing wrong with raising prices. And I think we all hesitate to raise prices because we think we'll lose customers. But sometimes raising prices makes them see your value more.
Right.
And, maybe if it makes it more comfortable for you, launch a new line of your, even if you're taking some of your old stuff, call it a new line or a new collection or whatever you want to call it. And that will make it more comfortable for you to raise your prices. So you're not, even if you're bringing things from old collections into the new collection, but if you're launching something new, that might make it feel more comfortable to increase your prices. And talking about the value that you're bringing them is really where they're going to see what it's worth. And maybe the people you're selling to who are wanting a lower price, maybe you have a lower price line for them. And maybe, we talk to a lot of brands about having, who are your customer buckets and how are you going to reach them? And if you have a customer bucket that is maybe a little bit price conscious, but you don't want to lose them, then maybe you only sell them certain products and you design a line for them. And then you launch a new collection that's going to make you feel comfortable selling in the world where we sell, because people are looking for bargains, but I don't believe that there's a lot of jewelry out there that's expensive. And there's a lot of people who will be willing to pay the prices, as long as you can convey what your value is to them and why they need to buy your product.
I hope that's recorded so I can go back and re-listen to that. That's a very good motivational. All those thoughts were really right on target. So thank you for that very much, Susan.
Of course. And for everybody, sometimes launching a new collection or calling it a new collection or a new twist on an old collection makes it feel better to raise the prices. So just think about, for everybody, if you're feeling stuck and like, how am I going to tell them that this earring that they bought last year for $20 is now $25, then call it something new. They probably won't remember. And if they've been buying from you forever and you want to grandfather them into a certain price, and that feels more comfortable, then grandfather a few people in who you value. But for everybody else, there's no reason not to raise your prices.
And there's no shame in wanting to make money. We find often among our female clients, there's a reluctance to say, I would like to make money. The sociologist and the psychologist could spend years figuring out the source of that. I'm sure there's plenty of literature on it already. There is absolutely nothing wrong with charging your worth. It is something you should, again, don't flinch.
I love that, May. Thank you. And there's 2 other people that I'd like to go ahead and if they could make their self introductions. And Jonathan, would you like to go first?
Sure. Hi, I'm Jonathan Hyman. I'm a partner in Kenobi Martins. We're an intellectual property law firm. I really appreciate you opening this up to me. I'm always trying to learn what stresses my clients are going through and issues they're facing. Pricing does seem to be a big factor for everybody with inflation. I've talked to some clients where I like the grandfathering idea, but they also where they have raised some pricing, but then been able to give themselves a little bit of negotiating room, so they can always raise it, but then come down if the reaction is, oh, that's a little too much. But at least they can build in some kind of price increase, and everybody's kind of expecting price increases just given the cost of goods and shipping and everything that's going on with getting raw materials.
So Jonathan, what industry are your clients in primarily?
We do everything, but I primarily focus in fashion, clothing, and consumer packaged goods.
Got it.
Yeah. But our firm is a full intellectual property law firm. We're about 300 attorneys, which makes us one of the largest IP firms in the country. And we do a lot of litigation, patent work. We do a lot of design patent work for the fashion space. Is really hard to get protection, obviously, from trade dress, and but we do look at design patents as a way to shore that up.
Right.
Thank you, Jonathan. And I think I might have been trying to reach out to you. So let's talk after this.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Mariana.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hi there. My name is Mariana. I am the founder of a handbag line called Sender Kiss, and we've been in the development stage now, and we're at the point where we're testing the market through soft launches to see what price the customers react to most, and that's a question we've been juggling with. Do we really are we accurate with our pricing where it depends on the materials, or do we want to enter the market, get ourselves known, build up our awareness, and then we can always raise, because it's not a good look to lower our prices once we're in the market. So in preparation for launch in mid-April, that's something that we're trying to decide. So thank you for this call. These points are useful. It does help to know that many times raising the value of a product actually can be for the benefit of the customer. For the customer, when the perceived value is also important, and if it's communicated, the process and the materials and the reason to buy is communicated well, then price shouldn't be a reason. So thank you.
We recommend that you consider price as simply a communication tool.
Right.
That if you charge $10 for your widget, that says it belongs at Target. And if you charge $1,000 for your widget, it says it belongs someplace else entirely. And if you think about that, in addition to all the other things you have to consider, because of course you have plenty of time to do this, it is exactly that. It tells people immediately where you belong in the marketplace. And if you've got a middle of the road product, and that's a perfectly fine thing, then go for a middle of the road price. If you want to say this is the most spectacular, rare leather, silk, opal, whatever, then obviously you're going for a higher price. But think of your price as a communication, a one bullet, 1 point communication to your client about what it is that you're the quality of what you're selling.
Right.
And
Yes,
think
and
so go ahead.
oh, I'm sorry, continue.
I was just going to say, think about who your customers are, because so many times we work with clients who really have lost sight of who their customer base is and who they're targeting. And that's just so important, especially if you're launching. It sounds like you're doing some research. Really do some research, ask questions, do some customer discovery, figure out where you want to be and what kind of prices your product can sustain in the marketplace. Because coming in at a price that feels comfortable to you and your customers is going to be a great way to enter the market. And you're not going to want to raise your price right away. So just ask questions, look at who else is out there, who's comparable to you, direct competition, indirect competition. What stores would you see your products in if you were to sell to them? And just really think about all those factors before you launch. so that you feel
Right.
comfortable. And also, you know, production, shipping, all the things that go into making your products. We find a lot of times that people just are not making the margins they should be making. And it's a shame because you need to make money. You're doing this as an entrepreneur because you love what you do, but you also need to make money. And none of us are giving anything away. And I once had somebody say to me, a painter would never come into your house and say, "You're so nice, I'm just going to paint your house for nothing." And yet we all, and that's always resonated with me because I feel like we all are so afraid to raise our prices, get the value that we deserve for our products and our hard work. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. You just really have to figure out where you sit in the marketplace and what you want your brand to be considered. Are you a luxury brand? Are you, as May said, a mid-market brand, a lower end? Whatever you decide you want to be, make sure your prices are reflecting who you are and that you're
Right.
consistent in your messaging.
Yes, that's helpful. For us, it's the struggle of it is a luxury product and the price at this point reflects that. But the argument for new customers is would they spend over 1,000 or is it better psychologically for them to see the price at right under 1,000 and then they have reason to buy into a new brand that isn't, an established name. So that is our current question. But yeah, all these points are very helpful. With keeping in mind our process, our materials, where we are selling now and where we plan to sell. Yes, the price should reflect that. And yeah, it's just fine tuning it a bit.
And it's a hard decision. I mean, it's a hard, and it's scary to enter the marketplace at a price. And sometimes we feel like, oh no, we're going in higher and it's not going to work. But if you've done your research and know your customers, then usually you will hit it at the right place.
So,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you. So Sherry had a question as well. As a new brand, do you suggest using a trunk show or consignment program to introduce products to stockists?
So trunk shows are a great way to put yourself out there, to meet customers, to have some customer discovery, to get feedback and put yourself out there and get your name out there. Consignment, I did some consignment. The problem with consignment is that you have to be on top of it and you have to check in with the store and you have to have spreadsheets because they won't always put in when something is sold. So then you're constantly checking back. So I did consignment at the beginning and then I just decided it wasn't worth it. It was too much work for me. And sometimes I just gave up and never even went and picked up my products, which is a terrible, not a good business way to run my business, but it just got too hard. And I think consignment can just be, I don't know, has anyone else done consignment and had a good experience with it? Faith, how about you? I think you're on mute.
Gay or Faith?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I've done consignment before, and I just made sure just to like keep checking on the store. And I even went in the store like, hey, I was checking the pieces, checking the inventory, kind of making sure that they kind of know the story behind the brand and like what material. And I think like knowingly like being a brand that like is so I think with the pricing, people are willing to pay the price if it's just like if it's natural material and or about the brand and like what it stands for. So like you said, just knowing your value from there and just keeping up with the story, like, hey, like how many you sold? Like, all right, when you push this item, that's not working, then I'll try to switch out another item to see like, okay, if this item's not working in your store, I'm just gonna switch it out and put a different product in there instead of this one because this one works better.
And also having a contract of some sort that they have to pay you on the first of every month. because otherwise it can get tricky, because you can go and they can say they don't have the money and they're not gonna, just make sure if you do it, you establish a real schedule for it. You're gonna give them X amount of products, you're gonna test it for 2 months, you get paid at the end of each month. They need to send you, you can send them a spreadsheet that they need to fill out every time something is sold, and you can, have a lawyer help you draw something up, but just going in to do it can be really tricky. So if you do it, just make sure you have some structure around it, because it is a good way to test the market. But it does end up being a lot of work.
I, I wanted to add to that because I have done that lots of times. And it seems like if the owner of say the hair salon that you're taking your jewelry to, in my case, if they have a choice between selling their product, some hair care product, or selling an earring, because they're not invested in those earrings, they're going to push not your jewelry, they're going to push what they've invested their money on. So there's where the consignment rub really happens. If they haven't paid for anything, they don't care if it sells. That's my take on it. I've gone down Susan's way where I'm like, just like finish this, it's over. I don't care, keep the jewelry. It's too much hassle, and you just want to keep a friend. So thank you for y'all's words. Those are very, very smart.
But sometimes if you find a store that's really aligned with your brand, that really believes in what you're doing, and, Sherry, you guys do something special, and, if you find a store that's really gonna take ownership and really loves your product, then that's sometimes a good fit. And if you're going to do consignment, sometimes it's a good idea to try to do a trunk show at the beginning so that everybody in the store knows who you are, so that the salespeople, it's also really important also that the salespeople know how to sell your product, and how to talk about your brand. And if you leave them a card with your brand, your mission statement, or your brand values, or who you guys are as founders, that's also a good way to try to get them to have some buy-in. And maybe there's some incentive that you can give them doing consignment. And I'm not sure what that is off the top of my head, but maybe there's a way to make them want to sell your product. If they sell X amount, then you come up with something. But doing trunk shows are a great way to get your name out there, to start advertising, putting it out on social media. You're doing a trunk show to associate yourself with different customer bases and get feedback.
Right. And for those of you that are accessory council members, when you do a trunk show, let us know in advance, and we put it in the newsletter. So that will help to promote it. And trunk shows are a great way to get you in front of customers. And that's ultimately, they're going to give you the most honest feedback.
Right.
So, and also, may I ask if everybody could put their URLs in the chat. So go ahead and put your website on the chat. That would be great.
Thank you. So Sherry, would you feel comfortable telling us about how you came to your pricing? Not so much.
Sure. So Lady Ann and I had a retail yarn shop for several years, and we got started dyeing yarn to supplement, or to go into the yarn shop. So we closed the yarn shop, continued dyeing yarn online, and November 1st, we launched our Wool Tribe brand, dyeing beanies. And so we used basically the same model for pricing out beanies and the other products that we're getting ready to launch as we did with our yarn line. And it's everything you said. We started bottom up. So every cost imaginable was built into the product. And then we kind of, I don't want to use the word play around, but we played around with different prices based on percentages. So, 1.1, 2.2, and we just basically are selling our products with a lot of value in our story. And so we're in a very, niche market. We have a niche product, and we've done so much research to compare our 100% merino American made beanie to Gucci, their $600 beanie that is fully synthetic. And we call it like wearing plastic on your head. So we've compared our products to every brand, high level, mid level, low level, that we can do. So I think going into the trade show in May, I think that's going to be all telling. So I don't know if that answered your question or not. That was a lot.
No, that's good.
And it
Yeah.
is really interesting when you look at, there are white t-shirts out there that cost $400. There are white t-shirts out there that cost $20. So what is it that it's the brand behind the product and how they're talking about it? There was a story that somebody told me once about, somebody put, I think on Etsy, a white t-shirt that said, this t-shirt is $1,000 or some crazy something on the t-shirt. And
Wildly popular.
People bought it. I think they sold, maybe only 5 of them, but it was a plain old t-shirt. So, really understanding what is it that's driving people to want your product is so important. And since you are doing the show in May, and we talked about this when we had our conversation, that really use it as a way to do some customer discovery, because it's great to be in front of buyers and think of some open-ended questions, non-leading questions that you can ask so that you're going to get some answers that you want, because it's a great forum to meet people, have them come by and just have a thick skin. I once had somebody come by my booth and said, your scarf looks like a slab of fabric. It's like, okay, and don't buy it. But,
well, we're in a very dangerous space because we know.
Whoops, we lost
Sherry, we lost you. We can't hear you anymore. Nope. Okay, so Faith, while Sherry's figuring out her volume, can you tell us how you came to price your stuff?
Yes. So I was looking at okay, how much time does this make me? And also just the pricing on the material. And that's how I came up with the price, is because mine's is around, I would say in the 320 to 350 range for my handbags. And eventually it will go up over time, just because it's something that's special. And but that's how I came up with the prices for right now. And then the more of customers that I'll get over time, probably the more value, and maybe, who knows, it might go up like Hermes. So but yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Sherry, are you back? Let's see.
I'm back.
Okay.
Hey!
Something's going on. We're having a really bad storm right now, so apologize for that. So I was talking about we're in a really tricky situation because we've sold yarn to very picky knitters for years, and now we're selling a handmade beanie and also a manufactured beanie. And we get all the time, oh, we could make that. Yes, but you're putting 12 to 15 hours of your time. What's the value there? And then you're using a skein of hand dyed yarn, and that's, let's say that's 30 to 40 bucks, depending on, the base. So by the time you value your time and the material you're using, you are way more expensive than the beanies we're selling. So getting back to the point, you have to value your time, and what is that? So a lot of it is just education. And that's the campaign right now, is educating.
Right.
And Sherry, a lot of us cannot knit. So we will be buying your beanies.
Good. And we can teach you how to knit. So I'm here to tell you, if I can learn how to knit, anyone can learn how to knit. And it is a fantastic sport, because I'm a college athlete, but it's a fantastic sport because it will reduce your stress level in a matter of minutes. It relaxes me to the point I fall asleep. So
Oh.
I highly recommend learning how to knit, because it uses both sides of your brain. So it's phenomenal.
Maybe that was my problem when I tried to knit before.
Falling asleep. Yeah.
Gay, you look like you had a question.
I'm thinking about all of y'all when we're doing all this. It's really interesting to hear Sherry's comment on her beanies and how you are so close to your pricing because y'all are actually dyeing the wool and all that. And no, I will never learn how to knit. I just can't even like think of one more thing I need to learn. But you kind of motivated me there for like a half a minute. I'm like, oh, maybe I could. It's like, no, you're not going to do that. It's the finishing it off. I don't think I know how to do.
Does anyone have questions about anything other than pricing? I mean, we're happy to talk about pricing. I just want to see if there's anything else on anyone's mind.
Well, we have 5 minutes left, so I do want to make sure if you do have questions to go ahead and get them in before the end of
I
the
have
hour.
one more, if you don't mind.
Sure.
We're looking at a tiered program for wholesale versus just a flat rate %. And any feedback guidance on a tiered program would be fantastic. Or is it worth our time to even implement that?
Tiered program meaning to sell to different types of retailers? Like,
Yes.
I
And
mean, I think
different tiers of product?
Quantity. So if you buy X number of pieces, you get this % off. If you go to the next level, you buy 100 pieces, then you get a higher % off.
I think that I would wait for the buyers to ask you for the discounts. They're going to ask you anyway, if they're placing orders over 50 to 100 pieces. So I don't know that you have to offer it, because maybe they won't. And I'm not sure that I found that buyers will ask for anything. They have their margins to meet. They have to get their, whatever markups they need. So they won't hesitate to ask you. So I'm not sure you have to offer it. I mean, you can decide once you start doing some more research and talking to people if you think that that's going to be an incentive for them. But I think that a lot of buyers are going to come out and ask you for it anyway. So I don't know that you have to implement that and give something away before it's asked of you, because they will ask. So that's my feeling, just having worked with buyers in the past. They will ask you for discounts if they're ordering different tiers and different amounts. So I don't know that you have to put it out there.
Okay.
Do it on a trial by, on a individual basis, and work with the buyers so that you know what quantities, how much that store means to you in terms of getting into it, how important the buyer is, how much you're willing to come down. That's just there's nothing wrong with doing it, but they're going to ask you anyway. So don't offer them more than they may even ask you for less than you're offering. So I wouldn't necessarily put it out there at the beginning.
Okay.
But if you have in mind, no, going in that there might be, and trust me, as a former buyer for a long time, I would always ask for a discount. If you don't ask, you're never going to know if you can get it or not. So in your mind, know ahead of time what you can afford to do and what you can't afford to do.
Right. Yeah. As we said before, never hesitate to say, I'll get back to you tomorrow. Don't make any decisions on the spot unless you have it written down and you've really worked it out.
Unless it's Oprah Winfrey standing in front of you saying, "Hi, I'm Oprah. Will you sell me this and I'll advertise it on my show?" Well, then the answer is yes. If it's Oprah, you can say yes right then and there. Anyone else? No.
And there's nothing wrong with getting back. You're not going to lose an order because you tell a buyer you're busy at the show and you want to go back and really figure out what you can do for them. And really take the time to figure out what the numbers are, because take it from somebody who said yes too many times, but you're not going to lose anything by getting back to them. And then then what's kind of great is then you have a conversation started and you're reconnecting with them and starting a conversation.
Oh. All right, thank you so much. And for those of you who did join late, we did record this. We will, and so you can go back once it's all downloaded and watch it on YouTube. And don't forget to look at the Accessory Council website for all the great events that we have coming up. And May and Susan have another webinar next month, and that is on,
I think it's why is your product
Why
not
is your product not
selling?
selling?
yeah. So look for that on the website. That will go up on the website shortly, and you can register for that. And don't forget about our monthly member meetup. All of these things are on our website under events. And if anybody else has any questions, you can always feel free to reach out to me. So thank you. Thank you, Susan. Thank you, May. It's
Thank
been
you
a
all for
really
coming.
interesting
Thank you all. It was so
conversation.
nice to meet you all.
And we will be giving Susan and May will send out that those links, which look like great links for everybody. So we'll make sure that everybody gets those.
Yes, and feel free to reach out to us, and we'll reach out to you guys to have a conversation. So it was so
All right.
nice to meet everybody. Thank you so
All right,
much.
Great.
thanks everyone. Have a good
Thank
day.
you all.
Everybody.
Bye.